Good morning friends and welcome to the pre-market view. US markets were mixed. Dow managed to close the highest possible level at about 15,747, up almost about 0.82%. However, Nasdaq was weak marginally at about 0.2%. However, the breadth of the market was weak and only few FMCG and technology heavyweights contributed to the upside in the Dow. Also, the 10-year bond yields have actually spiked up in US to about 2.64 from about 2.56 or thereabouts. So that has started hitting the yields in the emerging market space, and we've also seen some weakness in the emerging markets currencies, which could actually lead to some kind of a sell-off in the equity markets also. This is a theme that is going around in the market, so one needs to be a little careful about the emerging markets, at least in the short run. European markets were slightly up. Both DAX and CAC were up about 0.35 to about 0.8%. There's going to be an important policy meet of the Eurozone, and the rates are likely to be kept unchanged. No other major data points coming out from Eurozone. And when we look at the Asian markets today morning, most of the markets are down. Nikkei is down almost about 0.5%. Hang Seng is also down about 0.71%. And SGX Nifty is suggesting that we are going to open down with a tick of almost about 15 to 18 points. Also importantly, friends, we've seen that the flows have actually slowed down in the last 2 to 3 days. If you look at the cash market situation, the flows have actually slowed down quite a lot, and we have also seen increasing selling in the index futures, which is not boding well for our market. So talking about the yesterday's numbers, FIs were net buyers to the tune of about 282 crore. The domestic institutions were sellers to the tune of about 545 crore, and in the index futures we have seen selling to the tune of almost about 933 crore. Similarly, we have seen the 10-year bond yields in our markets really spiking up from about 8.55 to almost about 8.82 in the last 5 days. So that again is not a good news for our markets, and more so for the banking sector. We'll talk about that story a little later, but overall the market looks like it's going to pause at this point of time. There's not much of clarity about the extent of correction that can come through, but it's time to be cautious in the market, because both on the currency front and the bond yields front, things are not looking too good. One is hearing a lot of names in the mid cap because of the kind of momentum that we are seeing around, but we think that it makes more sense to be focusing on the quality names and to remain a little light at this point of time. On that note, let me invite Shaival to take us through important F&O inputs and ideas that we can have from the F&O side.
Good morning friends, let's have a view at derivatives. Friends, from past few days we've been observing that in futures and options segment the FIs have been net sellers, and since then we have seen that the market has been on southward journey. Now in yesterday's trends, friend, we have seen that around 8.35 lakh shares were reduced in open interest with a marginal increase in the cost of carry. This is indicating that for second consecutive day in a row, short positions have been squared off by market participants. Now there's no huge change or say drastic change in the PCR ratio, as it's increased marginally from 1.08 to 1.09, as we have seen equal number of activity or say addition taking place both on the call as well as put side. Now from the current option matrix, it's clearly visible that 6,200 put option after the strike of 6,000 put option stands with highest number of shares in the open interest, whereas talking about activity on the call side, 6,300 and 400 call option has seen good amount of activity and also stands with highest number of shares in the open interest. Friends, now 6250 is a weekly VWAP, and as we are trading above that, our bias for the market is positive. Also, I have mentioned that 6,200 put option is the one which is second highest open interest strike. So this level would this level on closing basis would act as a good support for the market, and on high side probably 6,400 can be seen in coming days. Friends, from intraday perspective, one can go long on Cipla by maintaining a stop loss of 420 rupees 90 paisa. Thank you.
Here are the important news and events that we are tracking today. First of all, the companies that will be announcing numbers today. Aurobindo Pharma, which is the stock under our coverage, we are looking at a net profit of about 177 crore. Cummins India, we are looking at a net profit of about 141 crore. India Cement, we are looking at a net profit of about 16.3 crore. And in case of Tech Mahindra, we are looking at a net profit of almost about 722 crore. The 10-year bond yields have spiked up in the past 5 days from almost about 8.53% to 8.82%. which is a big negative for our markets and most of the banking sector. And when you compare this with the US bond yields, which again have gone up from about 2.55 to about 2.64, and also the fact that the emerging markets currencies have taken a knock against the dollar, could lead to some kind of a sell-off across emerging markets. So this is something that one needs to watch out for over the next few days, how it pans out. The Telecom Commission has proposed raising the base price of spectrum in the 18 megahertz spectrum by over 15% to what the TRAI has recommended. And in case of 900 megahertz, the same has been increased by about 25%, though the base price would remain at a low level. Also, there are some relaxations in the M&A guidelines for the smaller circles, wherein the cap, which was capped at about 35%, now has been increased to about 50% for acquisition of the smaller players. RBI has come up with some guidelines for the foreign banks, and basically they have given a lot of relaxations to the foreign banks to open up their branch network, and they are trying to bring the foreign banks at par with the Indian banks, with the condition that that main company is being converted into a wholly owned subsidiary. So these banks can actually acquire the smaller private sector banks to the limit of about 74%. They can expand their branch network subject to their fulfilling the priority sector lending. So these are the positive news for the banking sector overall, and particularly the smaller banks in the private sector arena, which could be the candidates for acquisition, could see a good amount of buying action over the next few days. Wockhardt Limited has received a conditional go-ahead from the UK Health Regulator Authority to manufacture and supply most of its products manufactured in that same facility. And as per the statement coming out from Wockhardt, almost about from $18 million of revenue, only about £1 million could be affected because of this particular import alert which they have got. Coming to the stock specific ideas, Bajaj Electricals has received a major order of about 757 crore. So one can go long there with a stop loss of 169 and a target of about 177 to about 181. Titan Industries, some negative development as the RBI has notified that the aggregate FI limit for Titan has already reached its threshold limit. So one can short Titan with a stop loss of 254 and a target of about 242 to about 236. That's it from all of us, friends. Have a great trading session and see you tomorrow at the same time.